Well, started when I was really I was influenced by my father because I grew up in the South. My father was from Indianola, Mississippi. And my mother was from New Orleans. So when I was little, I lived in New Orleans and then in Memphis. So I grew up listening to the music that my father loved, which was really, I would say, very bluesy jazz kind of stuff. I mean, he liked Ray Charles and B.B. King and Count Basie and stuff like that, you know. And then he got me listening to more jazz piano players like George Shearing and Oscar Peterson, people like that, you know. So that was my influence musically. And then when I was about 9 years old, we moved to Berkeley, California, which was in the 60s, which was really a great environment to be a musician. So there, being a musician was kind of, it was looked up to, you know, it was a good thing to do. So I just got into it as a kid. I actually played drums all through school. I was a drummer. I played percussion in high school and college and the orchestra, but I always took piano lessons and got into jazz really quite young. And then when I was about 15 years old, I formed a little band with some guys that I went to high school with, and we played once a week at a little pizza place in Berkeley, California called Laval's Pizza. We played for really literally pizza and an orange drink, you know, and we had horns. I think we had trombone, trumpet, and sax, and so that's when I just got a chance to perform regularly and to compose, and I started writing songs and arranging for that band, and that's really what happened. And then I had a great high school band leader, this guy Bill Elliott, and we took courses in theory, ear training. We had a jazz band. I had really great musicians. The guy who's the band leader for the Saturday Night Live band, Lenny Pickett, was in my high school. We went to high school together. Another guy named Steve Elson, Johnny Otis Jr., Johnny Otis's son. You know, we had really great musicians at Berkeley High School in the 60s. So that's when I really got my education. I got to write for a big band. Duke Ellington came and heard our big band when he had his 70th birthday and heard my piece, and you know, I got to talk to him. And so, you know, it just had a really good environment to get going in music, and I just assumed that's what I would do, you know. I didn't really think about anything else. And in my day, or where I was at, I had never thought about the music business. I just thought about music. I just thought, well, I would just play the piano and just imagine that I was playing at Carnegie Hall or playing in a club or, you know, whatever it was. So when I was 17, there was a club in San Francisco called the Both And Club, and I became the house pianist for the jam sessions on Sunday afternoon. And that way I played with the great rhythm sections there. Ray Drummond was a great bassist who lived there at the time in the Bay Area. A great drummer named Augusta Lee Collins. And then whoever came to town, whether it was Rahsaan Roland Kirk or whoever like that, Pharoah Sanders, would come usually and sit in with us. So I got to play with a lot of great musicians there. So I just had a good environment to do it. I just put myself into it. And, you know, in those days, this was in the 70s, you know, by the 70s, there were, you know, there was jazz in college, but there weren't many jazz degrees that I knew of. There was Berkeley School of Music, and I didn't go there. I went to UCLA and then to University of California, where they had a jazz band, but I was a regular music major. And so for me, I just lasted a couple years, and then I started writing out lead sheets at Fantasy Records in Berkeley for, you know, Creedence Clearwater and all these rock and roll musicians that couldn't write out their music. And in those days, in order to copyright a song, you had to have it written out. Now you can just send in a CD. And I met Cal Tjader, the jazz vibist, in Fantasy Records, and I introduced myself. And, you know, I was pretty cocky. I said, "Hey, I'm ready to play in your band, man. Let's go." You know, and he was like, "Well, come sit in this summer. I'm going to be at El Matador in San Francisco." And I finally went and sat in. I wasn't old enough to even get in the club, so it took about a week to convince him to let me in. And I sat in, and he happened to need a piano player for 2 weeks, so he hired me. I was 19, and he hired me to do it. And after that 2 weeks, he said, "Okay, you got the gig." And then the next concert we did was the Monterey Jazz Festival Latin Jam Session. So there I was. I just turned 20, and I was on stage with Cal Tjader on vibes, but Dizzy Gillespie on trumpet, Clark Terry on trumpet, Armando Perazo on congas, Willie Bobo on percussion, on timbales, Al McKibben on bass, you know, Dick Burke on drums. It was an amazing experience. And then from there, I just played from band to band. I played with Cal for 2 years. I joined Ayrton Moreira and Flora Purim for a year. Then I became Cannibal Adderley's last pianist. I did his last year in '75 before he died. You know, I got on that scene. I moved back to New York in 1974 when I was about 21 years old. And I just started, you know, I really never thought about my career. I just thought about practicing and playing, and I met other musicians. And, you know, in those days, there was no internet or cell phones or computers or anything, so it was hanging out every night in the clubs. And when you were a new musician in New York, you met everybody, and all the clubs let you in for free. So I just went everywhere every night. I'd leave my house at midnight to go hang, you know, and then I'd wake up at 4 in the afternoon and practice the piano and work on my music until I'd go out at night. And that was my that was my life, man. Just, you know, going out playing and composing music, and you know, that was it. Well, you know, I didn't think I even thought about an option, you know, for myself. You know, I had dropped out of college, so that was kind of, you know, I'd done 2 years of college and, as a music major, and really enjoyed it. And but you know, when I got this opportunity, I just never looked back. You know, I wasn't smart. I wasn't the kind of person that was really good at business, or I don't, you know, I see a lot of people now, they teach business courses in music. You know, there was nothing like that. It was just, I just thought I was going to go out and do it. I just, to me, I read a book years later called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it was written by this guy who was a plastic surgeon, and he noticed that when he did a lot of pro bono work on people with cleft palates, and he went all over the world, and he knows people that had been really, you know, badly had looked bad or scarred or had bad feelings about themselves. When he would fix their face, about half of them would feel fantastic about themselves, but the other half would still internally have internalized how they looked, so they couldn't get over it, even though they were totally fine in their face. So he came up with this idea of, you know, psycho-cybernetics, which is a way of imagining how you want things to be. And I studied this thing where he was saying, like, yeah, if you know, a missile's trying to get from here to here, it doesn't go like that. It kind of corrects and it does that. So you just imagine, like I would imagine myself maybe playing piano at Carnegie Hall or something like that, and he says, you know, you're going to figure out a way to get there. And what I realized from doing that is, as a kid, just unconsciously, I used to play the piano for hours a day, imagining I was playing these concerts. So by the time I started playing concerts, it just felt like I had done it before. You know, I feel like I had prepared myself, you know, without knowing it psychologically, to do this. You know, so I think it's kind of, you know, it's like a meditation or whatever. I think part of it is really believing in it. And again, I didn't know that there were other options. I didn't think, well, I better get a degree and be a music teacher. I'm sure my parents thought that, but they never said it. Or I just thought, I'm going to go on the road and play, and I love these guys, and I love that jazz was part of the scene. It was part of the whole kind of community. It was part of the African-American community that was already starting to change at that point. And I just liked it, that I liked being in that environment. You know, I like the environment. The interesting thing is, what I observe in, you know, younger generation is that the musicians are way more prepared and sort of educated. They know all the styles. They know all of that. They, you know, they can transcribe, they can analyze it. But are there any more creative geniuses? No. You know, there's not any more originality than there used to be. I mean, there are original musicians that come out of that scene for sure. But, you know, so I would say what you know, I teach at the New School for Social Research for you know, music and for jazz and contemporary music, it's called, in New York. And I teach one class right now, the Rhythm and Blues Ensemble. And then I do a lot of teaching at the NYU jazz program. I'll substitute and do different things there, whether it's ear training or it's a combo, you know, whatever. So I see how the students are. And I think the problem is the world of jazz has shrunk up quite a bit. You know, when I started out, you could go and play 6 nights a week in a club, 3 sets a night, 4 sets on the weekend. You know, that's how I learned to play. You know, and I was friends with Bill Evans. You know, and I'd just bother him until he finally showed me something, or I'd become friends with, you know, whoever, Ray Drummond, the bassist, or whoever I could meet. I was a person that learned on-the-job training kind of thing, even though I listen and try to figure out what people are doing. But it seems to me that now there's such the pedagogy, you know, there's just such an amazing amount of music written out. There's, you know, everybody knows that, you know, you can look at Herbie Hancock, what he played in 1964 at Carnegie Hall with Miles Davis. You know, there's all that stuff is all transcribed. You can just go and check it out. It's much easier to learn that. So I would say that the materials that are offered in college are really what the musician, a student, can get. And also that, you know, it depends on the college you go to, because often people that teach aren't really the greatest players, but they could still be really good teachers. But I find now in New York, especially in different places, or here in New Orleans, not only are the people great teachers, but they're great players, and you get an opportunity to do it. Because it is a different thing. Teaching and playing is different. Hopefully it's the same person can do both well. But you can be a great player and not be a great teacher, or vice versa. You could really be good at getting other people to be good and not really be a great performer. You know, being a great performer is visceral too. It's just having a tactile, visceral way with your instrument. Understanding time. I've found a lot of teachers are not rhythm section players, so when I travel around, they're good horn players, but they don't really know how to teach rhythm section. They don't quite understand rhythm, you know, from sort of an experiential point of view. So I'm still of the opinion that it's the best way to become a great jazz musician is to just play, you know, rather than study in a college. But I think the college does give you, you know, it's like anything you study. You know, the way I learned to what I did is, rather than go to college, when I moved to New York, I took some courses at Manhattan School of Music. I studied with this woman, Loyola, who wrote this great book called Contemporary Harmony, and she had taught composition to Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter and Ron Carter. So when I heard about her, I went to her and I studied composition. So then I was writing, brass quintets and string pieces. I just wanted to expand my musical knowledge. So for me, it was really going beyond jazz that really helped me. I've studied a lot of classical music, modern classical music, Hungarian folk music, African music, from pygmies of the Ituri forest. I feel like if you get a chance to go to a college and you can expand your world so that you learn classical music if you don't know it, or you learn world music or whatever, you just for me, I wanted to add as much color as I could to my musical life. So I think if a place like a university has that to offer, you can take advantage of it. Well, how to start a collaboration depends on your environment. It depends where you are. I mean, I've been lucky. When I was in college, I was in Los Angeles, or I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, or then I've lived in New York. So great musicians are in those places. And if someone's in a place where there are a lot of great musicians, it's easier to put together a band. But I don't know, my paradigm was always Miles Davis. I figured he was the best band leader I ever saw of the generation that I looked up to. Of course, Duke Ellington, people like that were too, and Count Basie. But what Miles was able to do was, basically, he figured, he played the trumpet the way he played it pretty much, and he got people around him that helped change the music. And I think things that he wanted to do, he got young people around that are already doing it, and that helped him keep moving this thing forward. And I think he did it rather than saying, I need a great guitar player, I need a great bass player. He'd find somebody that he thought was the right musician for him. He had this guy Foley playing with him, who played kind of a tenor bass, and he ended up being kind of like a guitar player. I think he found the musicians that he loved, and then made the band work. So I think that's one way to do it. Like, for a long time, I had a band with this great tabla player from India, Badal Roy, and that influenced everything that we did. So I tried to get him. I realized I couldn't really become an Indian master, a master of Indian music. I wasn't interested in doing that. So what I would do is I would have him come to my house, and I would just tape him playing all his beats. Then I would take those beats and write the way I wanted to write to it, and we had a real collaboration. So to me, I want to take in people that are going to give me something different. And there are different approaches. Sometimes you want someone in your band who's really facile and really good at everything. But I tend to err towards the more individual, even if they're not quite as together at everything. And so you're going to sacrifice some stuff, but you're going to get some real spark. And to me, having a band, sometimes the weaknesses of the band can actually focus it. And just like with people, everybody's not good at everything. So if you can eliminate things and edit things out that don't work, sometimes that leaves you with more of a focus. So I find like there are great musicians that I play with. I play with a great drummer now, Mike Clark, who's been around. We've been playing around forever. He played with Headhunters, but he's not like a real great Latin player or something like that. He doesn't know all the Brazilian stuff. He knows what he knows. He has his own approach to everything. So I know that no matter what I do when I play with Mike Clark, I'm going to get Mike Clark, and I know it's going to be quirky and unique and interesting, and it's going to be a little, jerky and a little whatever it is that's him. But I know I'm going to be really having a conversation musically with somebody that's really interesting. And then I play with a lot of different, great bassists. And again, whether it's Christian McBride or Ron Carter, or it's a guy, Chip Jackson, that I play with a lot, whoever it is, they're going to be telling me their story. I mean, to me, that's what it's about. It's about conversing. Who do you want to hang out with, But if you're putting together a band and you're stuck with somebody and that's all you can find, then you try to make them work too. You try to have them, if you're a leader and you have an idea of what you want, you try to work with people and say, well, this is how I'm viewing it. I think you have to be willing to talk about it.
So it's much more of a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it can be, some people you don't ever, I like with Mike Clark, I don't ever talk to him about music, but with some other people I do talk about music. So it just depends on the person. But I find music is a conversation. In other words, jazz, if you think about it, is like conversation. You and I know the English language. We have pretty good vocabularies, hopefully. We know grammar. We know slang. We know bad words. We know good words. We have words that have color or meaning to us. They have emotion to us. That's like all the language of jazz. That's the language of music. And you even have a format. Like this format is you ask me a question and I answer. So a format within a tune can be 32 bars. We have these chord changes that are sort of set up. But within that, you don't know what's going to come out, So that's how I view it. I view it as like we're really relating. And then what we're doing is relating to the audience. I mean, I'm not so interested in really just, I mean, I like to rehearse and play with musicians, but I'm really interested in, you know, it's like I was reading a thing about Keith Jarrett saying it's like biofeedback. You know, when you're playing with the audience, I feel like if I'm at the piano, and usually because of the way the piano opens up, the audience is on my right, just because the piano opens up to the right. I feel the energy of the audience physically on my right arm and my leg. It's very, very tactile and sensual to me. Just like when I touch a piano, I get a feeling. So to me, it's all being, you know, we're all communicating when we're playing music. It's not just about, oh, let me play you my hip licks I learned in college. You know, it's about, well, I don't want to play something I've played before. I want to be inspired. I want to get lost. I want to get messed up and in a corner and find my way out. To me, I like the moment of performing, of being a jazz musician. And I'm not interested in being, taking care of business. I'm interested in being creative. And, you know, I think we were just watching, you know, the Keith Jarrett trio, and Jack DeJohnette takes a solo, and if you try to count it, he's not perfectly, you know, counting where you come back in on his eighths, but everybody's there, and that band is all together because they're all breathing together and they're hearing what he's playing. To me, I'm much more interested in that than just, you know, sure, when you're a student, you got to learn how to take care of business, but being creative is way more important and more exciting. The way I look at a career in music is they drop you into the middle of a jungle with a sickle, and you got to hack your own path out. And life is they drop you into the middle of a jungle without a sickle, and you got to hack your way out, you know. So I've done a million things as a musician. I've done, you know, I've been a band leader on a talk show. When I was in high school, I started writing music for film. There was a guy there named John Adams, not the John Adams, the composer, but another guy, and he made a film called The Celluloid Dropout, and it was making a film about a trombone player who dropped out of the movie. So he made this whole thing, and he gave it to me and said, would you come up with some music? So I went and recorded some music. And that was the first thing, you know, it was kind of like a jazz straight eighth piece, and it worked with the thing, and we cut it up, and I thought, oh, that's kind of fun. So I started really young doing music for film, and, you know, film or TV, because I think that, again, that's a whole other process where when I'm just doing jazz, I'm influenced, you know, what's inside of me, the instrument, musicians, you know, whatever I'm thinking about, I can just write whatever I want. But if you're writing to some kind of, again, a little more of a format or a little more something that's defined, it makes you come up with something other than you would normally, or for me anyway. So I like the fact of getting a film, and I've done a lot of TV shows, a lot of film scores, and, you know, get to look at it and decide, okay, how am I going to make this work? Obviously, I have to deal with the director, and he says where he wants it, and it's very cut and dried. It's kind of like making shoes, much more than being creative. It's like, oh, we got to measure the dude's foot. You know, if you get like an individual, you know, like custom-made shoes. That's really what it is, kind of scoring. So I've gotten a really nice opportunity to do it. And one thing that really started me doing it was when I was the band leader on the Arsenio Hall show. We would often, they'd shoot little comedy bits that were maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes. And I'd have 15 minutes to come up with the music for it. We'd have to go on the bandstand, record it with the band I had, and put it on. So that's when I learned to be really quick and do it. You know? Well, that's a couple questions. I mean, there's a whole way of trying to develop your voice. I think that's one thing we could talk about. But in terms of breaking into other parts of the business, I think that being a jazz musician does give you really great skills to do a lot of different things. I mean, first of all, if you're a really good improviser, that's basically what composing is, you know. So hopefully you've done it. I would encourage every jazz musician, every student, to do a lot of writing and a lot of different types of writing. And to break in, I would think you know, there's no answer to that. I mean, that's a whole other subject, but it's mainly having connections. And obviously, if you want to write music for film, you got to meet directors. So if you're in a college, you go over to that film department or find some people who are into that, you know. Definitely is a way to do it, and say, I'll do music for free, you know. So I think that's a way to do it. Also, for writing music for commercials is a great thing to do. And again, if there's a television department in the school, you know, there are a lot of resources in a college that, like here, you know, you have this studio, whatever. Say, well, do you have any shows? Can I write some music for it? Can I give you some music for it? Just getting involved like that, you know. And also, a lot of colleges, I know here at Loyola, they have a film scoring class. I would definitely take that. That's a huge opportunity to have it. I just did it on my own. I never took a class in film scoring, you know. I had friends that did it, and I said, hey, how do you do that? And for me, I just learned to be a really quick study. It's like, okay, you can go really, you know, some things like jazz, I studied all my life, and I still look at it, and it's like, I feel it's a deep, meditative scholastic, scholarly kind of point of view that I have on it, as well as being a performer. But other things I've just had to jump in and just decide I'm almost going to be like an actor. In fact, when I first conducted for Nancy Wilson, I had to conduct a big orchestra with strings, and I'd never done it. I took about 2 lessons from a guy in New York, and I decided, okay, I got to just pretend to be a conductor. So I had the tuxedo, and I just pretended it. And at the end of 2 weeks, the guy goes, "Man, the lead, the head violin guy goes, you're the best conductor we've had." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, you're just clear. You just keep the beat, and you bring us in, and you cut it off." I went, "Okay, great." But so a lot of it is you got to pretend. You got to just decide, okay, I know how to do this. But I think anybody that's a good jazz musician is going to be quick and have a lot of skills and have a good ear and be able to write. So musically, I think you can cover anything. It's just, it seems to me what's changed is people do a lot of things over the internet now. So I know, like my son is in 10th grade and he's a musician. He has one of his friends who really wants to be a film composer, and he's studying in New York. And so he just puts up stuff that he's done. He'll take old movies and he'll rescore it, and he puts it up on YouTube, and he's getting jobs that way. People are seeing him that way. So you can be creative. Well, the show is over now. It's been over a couple years, but it was a film and then a television show called The Naked Brothers Band, and it was super successful. It was a huge hit. It happened really totally. This is another one of those serendipitous things by accident, I would say. When my kids were growing up, they're 16 and 13 now. Their names are Nat Wolff and Alex Wolff, and they have their 3rd album coming out under Nat and Alex Wolff, and they've turned into amazing, perfect pitch singer-songwriters. They both play guitar and piano, and the youngest is a drummer. And but in that time they were growing up, and they were writing songs, and they were listening to me and stuff. And my oldest son put a sign when he was really little, like about 5 years old, on his door. It says, "I want to be a child actor," AKTOR, And my wife's an actress, so she said, "No way, man, I'm not going to have you go doing auditions and stuff like that." So at birthday parties and stuff, we just had like a little camera, and she'd film the kids, and she noticed that the kids love pretending to be famous. They love pretending that they were baseball players or firemen. They always wanted to be something other than they were. So she just came up with this idea, what if we, and since our kids, my oldest son was writing a lot of songs. In fact, for one of his birthdays when he was about 8 years old, he wanted to go in the studio, so I got some studio musicians together, and he went in the studio and cut 3 or 4 of his songs, and they are just amazing songs. He was writing like an adult, but he had this high little voice, But he did this one-tune Crazy Car that became like a huge hit when we did our show. So my wife came up with this idea because she wrote a movie called The Tick Code that was a jazz movie that starred her name's Polly Draper, and Gregory Hines. It was his last movie, and it was about a 12-year-old boy who had Tourette syndrome. I have Tourette syndrome, so he was a jazz pianist, and it was kind of based on my story, not my plot, but things I went through. So she started writing at that point. Then she'd written a play. So she not only was an actor, but she was starting to do other things, right? And then I think she wanted to direct. So she came up with an idea, basically that it was like Spinal Tap meets Little Rascals. What if we just did like a fake documentary of a kids band that was as famous as the Beatles? So she just had this idea. We didn't have any money for it. We didn't have a script, but we have a lot of friends that are actors and stuff, so famous people. So she said, well, I think if I want those kids to seem famous, I got to get other famous people acting like they're famous. So we're good friends with Julianne Moore, the actress, and we were having dinner with her and her husband. And Polly just kind of blurted this out, and her husband goes, "Oh, she'll do it. She'll do a scene." And Julie said, "Well, I'm going out of town Thursday. If you can do it before then." So Polly quickly, we just got a guy to shoot this, digital video thing. And she just was on the floor, man. Julie was there, and she was like writing a little scene for her and my oldest son, Nat, and came up with a scene, and we shot that. And through that, then we started raising money and, raised some money. It was under $1 million to do this movie. And she wrote a script, and we shot it, below the line, non-union, with union actors, and we got a lot of our friends to be in it. And our kids took their friends from preschool that they'd had a little band with, and we used them as the band members. And so my son Nat, who was 9 when we shot the movie, went in and we recorded about 10 songs. And so they could lip sync them on the thing. And we just she came up with this whole idea, and we came up with this whole movie. I played the father, which was really fun. Like a real goofy Christopher Guest kind of thing. And we pretended like they were always on camera talking to the camera. And then we had, Uma Thurman trying to get Nat's autograph, and we had Tony Shalhoub, but just all these great people. And Ann Curry is a friend of ours, so she did a big news thing on him, tried to pretend news thing. So we just kind of created this world, and we raised the money, made this movie. you know, we tested it. It went through the roof of testing. They said, "Is testing better than Shrek?" Nobody would buy it for about a year. We went to every studio. They go, "Well, nobody's going to be interested. This is lame," you know, blah, 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 blah. And then we did the Hamptons Film Festival, and it was it won the family section. And there was a guy there named Albie Hecht, and Albie Hecht had been the president of Nickelodeon, and then he'd gone on to create Spike TV, and, you know, really interesting guy, producer. He said, "You know, I just love this movie." And then after about 3 months, he kept calling us, and he finally took us into Nickelodeon. We tried to make a deal with the movie, and they said, "Well, we want you to do a television show." And we decided we don't want to put our kids on TV and go through all that. Will we do a cartoon? And they didn't want to do a cartoon. So we had a really good agent from CAA. He said, "Well, figure out the parameters under which you would do a television show." We said, "We want to shoot in the summer. We don't want our kids to miss much school, blah, blah, blah." And they do just 13 episodes. So we worked it all out with Nickelodeon, and we did it. And my wife wrote it and produced it and directed it. And we hired a staff, and it just turned into a huge hit, you know. And then that facilitated my kids recording all the time, which was great. They had to write and record at least about a tune per episode during the winter, so we could shoot it in the summer. So we kind of had this like cranking thing going. It was a 12-month-a-year thing, because after we shot it like a little movie. We'd have to go edit it, and we'd do all the music, and I did all the underscoring. So for about 4 years, we were just cranking really hard, 4 or 5 years. And then after 3 seasons, it went off the air, and so now my kids are all acting and doing music, and we're all doing different things. But it was an amazing experience, and I learned so much, and I had to use all of my jazz improv skills as an actor, to score it. I had to score, you know, I'd have to score an episode in 2 days or whatever I do, you know. I got an assistant so I could be, you know, acting. We had an office up there, and I'd say, "Okay, here's some themes, see what you can do with that." And I'd run down, I'd do my scenes, and I'd run up there, and then I was producing. We'd have meetings. We're out of money. We're going to have to put in our own money, and we want George Lopez to be in it, so, you know, he was a friend, so we got to fly him in ourselves. I mean, it was, you know, it was really fun, really hard, really hectic, kind of low budget. But it was a great experience for me and for our family to be together and to do music and acting and all that together. Oh, advice is hard to give generically, but I mean, for me, I mean, I can just say that, you know, I was lucky to be able to do a lot of different things and to expand my skills. You know, when I got with Nancy Wilson, I was 26 years old, and I'd been on the road for many years. I'd been pianist with Cal Tjader, then, you know, Airto, then Cannonball, then Sonny Rollins, then Thad Jones, Mel Lewis. But when I got with Nancy, I had to be another kind of musician. I had to conduct, and I had to arrange I learned to write arrangements, you know, and again, I had never studied orchestration or arrangements because I'd left school early. So I just had to study, you know, I got a book about it, Inside the Score or something, and I had 3 scores, and I studied that, and then I just studied scores, and I got to figure it out. So I learned to write for her, which meant I had to make it like a Chinese puzzle, you know, where you could take one thing away and then it would work. So I would make it work for trio, quintet, big band of strings, or orchestra. I had to do one arrangement to do that. So it was great training, on-the-job training. And then that taught me to do it, and then I sang with Nancy. So I had to get all these skills together sort of from doing the job. But I would say as many skills as you can get together in the beginning would probably help you. Now, if you really, it depends on the person. If you want to go out and do a lot of different things. When I talk to my friends now, Dave Liebman, all these people who are having careers as jazz musicians, I mean, look at Wynton Marsalis. He's not making it as a jazz musician. He's got an amazing thing at Lincoln Center, and he's an administrator. You know, you have to, whatever it is, you have to cobble together a career now. You can't just be a piano player and go out and go on the road. It's just not enough money. It's not enough jobs. It's not enough. I don't know anybody that does that. I don't know anybody that does that. You have to be able to teach. You have to be able to write. You have to be able to, you know, do other things in order to survive, whether it's film scores or commercials or, you know. There's no studio scene per se like there used to be. You could go to LA, I guess there's a studio scene for doing movies. You have to be an amazing sight reader to do it. But there's not a studio scene where people were going and doing 8 sessions a day on jingles or whatever. It's just, everybody does it in their home now. The people do it on, you know, with using like I do, with a computer and Logic and samples, and maybe have 1 or 2 guys on it. So, I mean, I would say the advice is just to learn as many skills as you can. Now, if you're a person that's just insistent on being a jazz person, you just have to be focused, and you have to be willing to go down that path and live that life and not need a lot. You have to be Spartan, you know. But I do think that being a good teacher is important, you know, and being willing to you have to decide, are you willing to teach in an institution that's going to keep you in one city? Or I'm lucky because at the new school, you know, we have a semester of maybe 15, you know, 1 day a week sessions, and you can miss 5 of them if you're a teacher and have subs. You know, they have it because it's for professional musicians. They want professional musicians like NYU. They want you to be going out on the road and keeping the name of the place alive. But a lot of places don't want that. So you have to decide on your lifestyle, how you want to be. And I just know for me, I was always open, and I never knew what door was going to open. And there's some opportunities I didn't take that I regret. I had some really big opportunities, and there's some opportunities I took, like Arsenio Hall, man. I turned that down 3 times. It's like, I don't want to move to LA and do a talk show. That seemed lame. I thought those talk show guys were lame, you know. But I did it, and it changed my life, all for the better, you know. So you just never know. It's, I would say, just if you really think I mean, most people really aren't just great jazz instrumentalists. Most are mediocre. Let's just be honest. You know, most doctors are mediocre. Most lawyers are mediocre. Most politicians are mediocre. You know, so if you think you can be really great, then go do that. If not, use jazz to figure, you know, and because you love it and you want to do it, but figure out other things you can do with that talent set. You know, which is be able to improvise, be able to do things on the spur of the moment, be in the moment. Be, you know, interactive socially, you know, like you're interactive in a band, hopefully as a rhythm section player or any kind of musician. You know, if you're in a band, you know, I was just working yesterday with a couple ensembles, and both of them I said, hey, look up, everybody. It's like basketball. You can't play basketball and dribble and look down at the ball. You can't. You watch any basketball player, they're looking at the basket, they're looking up, you know, you got to be up in that scene. You got to be up with the people. You got to be, you know, in this world here, and you should be able to do all your dribbling without looking. You know, all your playing, you shouldn't have to do it. So I think that those kind of qualities, you can take them and use them in other things, and just being out there. I mean, for me, I think being out there for a lot of people now is on Facebook and the internet, and I do that. But for me, still in New York City, I have to go out at night and hang. And the minute I go out and hang, I run into Lenny White, Ron Carter, whoever it is, and then, oh, Mike, let's play. Call, you know, Ron said, call me, please, you know, and I just call them, and I can't do that day. Can we do another day? You know, for me, it's interactive on a personal level. That's the best for me, even though I do it. But I really feel like the social networking has got to be huge for now, you know, especially YouTube. Don't be, I think you have to be, you can't be penny wise and pound foolish. You know, don't be worried. People are always worried, oh, they're going to rip me off and all that. There's hardly any money to be made anymore in music. I mean, the music business is so different. If you want to be a musician, put it out there. And if it's supposed to come back to you in the universe, it'll come back to you and you'll make your money. You know, that's why I look at it.
Well, Michael Wolff, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
My pleasure.